This is episode 94 of the Dorks, and we're calling it Preppers. Trent, Jeff, and I sat down with AI Jon until he glitched out and discussed some of the hot topics we're hearing through the industry here in Q1 of 2025. Will we need to go bag this year? What might be coming to the industry in terms of tech or turmoil? Who knows, but we threw plenty of wags out there. I hope you enjoy.
Episode 94, Q1 2025. We're calling it. Get your prepper ready. It's prep time. I hope you got your bunkers pulled down. You've got some of that dry, freeze-dried food, etc., your clean water filter systems, because, I just feel like I'm glad I'm wearing a seatbelt right now. Excited to sit down with you guys for Dorks only. I feel like we're going to do this more often, and I think it's a good idea. We were encouraged to sit down and do this a little bit more, but haven't seen you guys in a little while. I am going to start with my own tonight. I got a little Basil Hayden's here.
Oh, that's a good one.
The local liquor store had their own barrel pick, I guess, and it was on sale, so got to say thanks to them. And made it into an old-fashioned, though. Some of you will be mad at me for that, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So, Travis, you're coming to us from a hotel room. Do they let you have them rinky-rinkies in the hotel room?
I am in not so sunny San Antonio. I have to share this we're all northerners. So I was on the plane and I opened up my weather app for San Antonio and it said extreme cold alert. And I looked at the temperature and it was 26 degrees. And then I looked at the temperature in Chicago where I was leaving and it was -3. I'm like, we have different definitions of
I told
extreme
Travis,
cold.
he sent me that, and I was like, so I work out in my garage, so I've got my squat rack and all my stuff in the garage, and I was like, yeah, my workout this morning was colder than that, so I don't know about extreme cold.
But I stopped by, and I also have an old fashioned, the cheap premix way. This has got some Knob Creek in it, the On the Rocks cocktail, nice in a pinch. Actually, if it wasn't in a glass bottle, they're really good for the beach. If you ever make it to a beach and need
the beach in San Antonio.
Yeah. I have to say, Travis, I like that one. Started with that one, but now Buffalo Trace makes one.
Oh, do they?
That I really liked. It's a little stronger, a little less sweet. And yeah, if you use a little plastic, though, you can take it to the beach, and get a little lid, or maybe a little tumbler, like that MEP tumbler right there. That might carry them nicely. I don't know. Just saying.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Convention this year is in Maui. I might have to take a couple of tumblers with me.
Tumbling into National.
What you got there, Trent? You drinking some fizzy water?
Yeah, I got my fizzy. There we go. San Pellegrino, some mineral water. I know.
I almost grabbed this stuff when I was downstairs too. They have a Topo Chico. Is that how you say it? Topo Chico?
Yeah.
Hard seltzer or hard
Okay.
mineral water with strawberry and guava, and I'm like, ooh, that could be like Trent.
I've got a little more time, a few more weeks of dues to pay before I can go for the hard Topo Chico, I think. So I know I've got John on the train here.
Yep.
Going through a little dry period as well. So blame me for all the boring drinks.
I like this. We're prepping.
We are prepping.
That's right. John's prepping his internet.
Yeah, John's on a unstable hotspot, so we'll just let John stay frozen there for a second, and we'll continue on.
the ghost of the AI. That's what we should do now for him. Is like we should program a lot of what he says into an AI and train it, and then whenever he goes out, it can be like, "What would John say?" And it can come back with an answer.
I've been thinking about this more and more recently as I listen to Lex and some of the people like on the JRE podcast and others. Every time you use that voice to text, that's got to be captured somewhere. And John, being dyslexic, uses it constantly. Mm-hmm. So there actually may be an AI John out there somewhere that we're just not aware of.
Oh, they've built one. I'm almost certain of it.
I think he's it, actually. I think that's why he's doing it. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. So we decided we get together. We were joking around about prepping, but honestly, guys, like 2025, it's only a little over halfway through February, and I feel like we're in light years now. Like Q1 is a year. And I think it's a good opportunity to kind of talk about what's going on in our worlds right now. What are we seeing? What are we hearing about? What has been like the early feedback that you're getting? Travis, I think you've been traveling probably the most of all of us right now. What's the world like out there?
Um, well, I mean, it's interesting for sure. Some of the stuff that we've talked about um, actually is now top of mind because we talked about it just before we started recording, and it's very relevant in our side is the tariffs. Some of those tariff conversations from the sheet metal side. So, little preview pitch. We're going to have somebody from the metal side on our Fab forum that we're doing in Boston to come in and give us a little market update on how that's going to all affect it. But Trent, you said something like some of the stuff you're seeing, people are kind of scared of it up in Canada.
I think there's some uncertainty, seems to be, and I think with a lot of this stuff, I just think that human nature really is more of we're, I think we're more afraid to when we're uncertain. I mean,
Yeah,
even even I guess an unfavorable future is still a known future, even if it is unfavorable. So I think there's a lot of really trying to figure out what is the real play here because the title of this episode is Prepper. I mean, if you know what's coming at you, you can prep for it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think what's really got some of the in the contracting world too is just not. I don't think any of it's really set in stone yet. So there's a lot of moving parts, and so there is tariffs, but maybe there won't be, or when will they kick in? How big will they be? I don't think we've really landed on
and I
a
think
solid
that
foundation.
there's probably plenty of contractors out there that are kind of have an investor mindset like yourself that are trying to make the right play because even in a downturn, like let's just say that the tariffs do cause a downturn or an upswing in costs and a downturn in maybe construction. There's still going to be winners, right? There's still going to be people that
Yep.
can play the game right to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think the problem though, and you hit it, Trent, is sort of some of the unknown. Like you said, when we know, especially in construction, right? Certainty drives us to make great decisions and do things. Uncertainty, and especially uncertainty crossed with human nature, creates a lot of the problems. I think we were getting into some political rants on our own little Slack over here, and to my own detriment here, my side Slack ability does not, it lacks the focus and the content that I'm trying to say is that, it wasn't and isn't the tariffs necessarily themselves. It's the uncertainty of it. And then what people do. Like,
Yeah.
I've had a couple people on the crew and we like seriously had a news episode where we said, these are coming. These could be really crazy. And the person said, well, what would happen if people just start buying it up? And I literally recorded an episode 3 days later, and the article was people are buying it up, and it's driving up the price and
Yeah.
making uncertain schedules.
Yeah,
And so,
sometimes you create the destiny through
yeah,
like
Yes,
but we
right.
don't even really know. And contractors I think just aren't sure where to invest or what levers to pull right now because it is uncertain. So, but one thing that I will tell you that is certain is contracting has always, and it's one of the best industries that knows how to deal with highs and lows. So don't,
Right.
I'm not sitting here freaking out that contractors can't work their way through highs and lows. I don't think there's anyone better at it than they are. I don't think they know if it's going to be a high or a low.
I was I was at MEP Innovation and we were talking about like some of the things, and the reason that I really thought about the tariffs and everything is are people sitting down and really doing the planning around that? We talked about I threw out because I'm working with more manufacturers. They do a pre-mortem on products where they sit down and they argue about how this is going to fail. Like they get everybody in a room before they start and they say, okay, you're all the experts. You work on every project. How's this project going to fail? And I think we need to have those conversations right now. It's like, okay, there's uncertainty. So we're not going to be able to plan on what we are going to do. How are we going to make, our business less fragile? How are we going to make sure that we know what move to make when something happens out of the blue? And I feel like that's something that we always talk about doing, but never find the time to do as contractors. Even with the data stuff, they're like, oh, we want to be data driven. I'm like, when's the last time you looked at your data? Like, are you really looking at it before when it can do good or just at the end, in
we talked about this a little bit out in LA too. And I would agree with you. That's one of the things that we really do. And we probably talked about this a dozen times on the podcast. Most of the contractors I talk to do a post job review when a job goes bad. They never do a post-job review when it goes well. And they never really go in and actually truly plan out a job. Like, I know it goes against kind of the ethos of our industry of revenue, but if you really kind of, I would think if you really focused in on the jobs that you could do well, you put a lot of the extra effort in up front, I think that many contractors could get above that 10% profit that most people aren't even making, and make more money doing less revenue.
Well, I'll double down with both of you there. The anti-fragility, John, is really resonating with me, and I love the idea of a pre-mortem. That was the unique thing reading about Astro Teller at Google X. Like his first question and the first KPI he wanted was, when have we realized we have to cut and run? What is our failure metric? That this did not work. We reached that, we're out. And then he would sit everybody in the room and go, okay, D-Day is coming. What are all the ways this isn't going to work? Talk to me about every crazy idea about how it's not going to work and planning. And then Travis, to your point, like we do the post-mortem, but does anybody really put that post-mortem into a data set in which we can look for the trends and then access them? What do? We sit around and we talk about it. It's usually a bitch session, and we blame it on other people and things outside of our control, and we never see the trend. And then when it's time to plan, we don't take anything that we talked about into consideration, because also we're human. Like I had this the prepper thing. It made me think of like when COVID first hit. I was really unsettled. I was out of town. I was traveling. I didn't know if grocery stores were going to be open, none of it. And I could not get settled until I did my trip to like Costco and et cetera and bought a bunch of stuff, probably some of which I still have because I went overboard, and settled in. And it's really hard for me to access those negative feelings about that uncertainty. But what I can tell you is I think back fondly of some of the nights. You remember people used to sit on their balcony at sundown or 8 o'clock and howl? Yeah. And I think about how serene and relaxing that was. That wasn't serene and relaxing. That's my human nature looking back and making the best of it. So right. I think there's a couple of things there, guys, that like are really forcing a lot of the issues that we're seeing. And I'm going to dovetail it because, John, you started talking about it while we have your internet connection up. I think it's driving burnout. I think the level of uncertainty combined with the continued acceleration and hype around AI is creating a perfect storm for serious burnout. And we're seeing it.
So I think what I've been seeing a lot, like to play shrink or put my little shrink cap on, is, we have some of these best in class contractors have really strict processes in place. And what really hurts a process is a disruption. And I think what's happening is, you get to the point where you're used to executing this again and again the same way, and you have the time to do that. And now we'll throw 3 or 4 disruptions at you, 3 or 4 problem children. And now you're starting to panic. You see all this coming down here. I can see this being a big anxiety time. And even just the weather. Look at the weather. We've had Arctic blasts in one area, floods others, and fires others. These are like disruptions that slowly weigh on people. And I think really we got to that point where we were good enough to get in a good pattern, and now with all these disruptions, it's, do we have, have we understood how to get back to those patterns when we get blown off to one side or the other? Like when something really goes bad, how long does it take us to get that back up and straight? And if it's too long, I think that anxiety leads to burnout. And I am watching people just left, right, center, burnout, 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 burnout. I had people that I didn't even think were in trouble contact me last week. And, I don't know about you guys, but my wife says solidly no decisions in February. All right. It's because February's cold. Everybody quits. It's always bad. This is like the February Mach 10, man.
Yeah.
Like all I keep telling my friends is don't quit yet. Quit in March. Don't do anything in February. It's all an illusion. But
By the way,
run
run the chat bot against us because you said that last February too. Because it's the only reason I know that it's no decision February. Like there's
no
something
decision
to that.
February.
Yeah, there's something to it. Trent, I'm wondering, man, like what are you seeing? Because you have that angle on it, and we were talking about pre-show. Like, what's up?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I've had some people reach out too, and I see it. I think I've always seen it to a point, but there could be. It could very well be amplified a little higher than what we're used to, and I think maybe just some of the landscape. I mean, people. I think people tend to rush decisions around heightened times, and I mean, we just came through an election cycle, and whether it went the way you wanted or didn't go the way you want, and I think a lot of these times did just make people a little more nervous and reactionary in general, and I it's just I think resiliency seems to be a little bit seems to be kind of faltering and wavering a bit. I and maybe a lot of that is like kind of what John pointed to is we've got a lot more tech now. We've got a lot more stringent workflows. Um, we've created a lot of better times through better workflows and more streamlined paths. But you know what they tell you, like, sometimes the good times create the weaker individual. I think resiliency might not be what it used to be because I don't think people have had to fight as hard as they did years ago. And when times come around where you got to fight again, sometimes you forget how to fight. So, some of that could be a little bit of. I'm not trying to dog the individual for. I'm not blaming them, but sometimes you lose that resiliency that you had when you were battling a little harder, maybe in the past.
Yeah, Travis, looks like you got something there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would put a little twist on that too. I think that again, not to dog people, but I think that the the four of us are surrounded by a lot of like high performers, right? And what's the reward for a job well done? It's more work. And I think that many of the people that we see are probably lumped into that category. Like the better you do, the more you're going to get. Um, and I do find it interesting that we've in our industry probably in the last 2 years have really seen a big focus on this. Yet we still kind of see more and more of these issues cropping up. And I don't know if people are not kind of heeding it. I don't know, Trent. I think I kind of wonder if you're seeing it the way I am, like maybe you recognize it in yourself more, so you're starting to see it in others. If that's part of what's making it seem more
That's a good
prevalent.
point. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think as much as we talk about work-life balance and all the things that we're trying to do, like the reality of the situation is with the exception of a few markets, most of the people that we know are like busier than they've ever been. They've got giant backlogs. There's a ton of work out there. Like, and the good people get that work.
Yeah, a couple things on that. Like for me, we should have put a disclaimer. We're not here to be your mental health coaches. We're just experienced at being poorly mental health. But secondly, like to your point, Trent, we don't want to blame individuals, right? We're not actually talking to the individual in this. And I think this is where like I'll go to where some of my angst right now is we did remove a lot of those tools and learning processes. I don't want to maybe I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to use here, but systematically that has really left the individuals, right? So you can't blame an individual that was systematically failed. And I think we've systematically failed people over time in creating resiliency and allowing those processes to build resiliency. And I think that's something that is really important. It's something sort of the nature of our world drove to us before is creating that resiliency, or it was found in other places. Both of you all served in the military, and part of the process of basic training, et cetera, is building resiliency, knowing that there's an uncertainty, right? And so I think we need that. Um, but so that has failed an entire group of people. You know, it started at some point. You know, we nerfed the world, and that's a bad idea. Um, how do we undo that? That's a conversation that I think brings me to my next point. Is like we did go through Trent a pretty crazy election cycle. And unfortunately, we feel like some people won and some people lost is this general consensus. And I'm seeing a lack of ability to like talk, to like seriously sit down and have conversations. I've seen more conversations and heard more horror stories over the Super Bowl or other things where things just melt down. And I'm like, if you've got high performance, uncertainty at work, an increasing workload, and then you have a deteriorating social environment, that's like a special brew of crap. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, we're on the show of crap,
Crap.
and at some point we like have to be able to sit down, like have a conversation, like not about it all, not. Trent, you said this to me this week, and I really appreciated it. Like, okay, like some things could be lost, some things could be gained. We gonna be here? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I could look at it that way, and I probably should because it'll make everything feel a little better. So I think there's a level of civility and empathy, and like that's why I think I wanted to sit down and rant with you guys tonight because it's relieving. Like,
Yeah. Well, look,
Yeah.
you've got to. I I don't think overreacting to it is. I think most of what's happened in the past year, when we talk about the technologies we've put in place, the workflows, all this stuff, and maybe uncertainty is in battling with some of that. But I think at the end of the day, you just sit back, take a deep breath. No, we put these things in place for a reason. We believed in them. We believed in them 3, 4 years ago when we implemented them. I don't think anything's changed to the point where we don't believe in it anymore. It supports the 80%, it supports the 80 of the 80-20 principle. Um, everything has outliers, but we built our process around the box, not the whiskers. So just remember that, trust the process and go. I mean, don't let it. I've got to tell you, this industry used to be way more wicked and unknowing than it is today. So
yeah.
I just think it's probably a good thing that maybe we've forgotten some of that wickedness, and when times shine light on a little bit of it again, we get scared because it's something we haven't seen maybe in a little while. But trust the process. I mean, I don't think anything is changing to the point where we can't do what we've trained to do, what we know how to do. We can build buildings. We can make money doing it. There will be more buildings to build, regardless of
Well, and
what policy comes in place.
we'll still have change orders. We'll still have escalations. We'll still have all those things. We'll still have litigation. The lawyers will still flourish. We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
No matter what's going on, like at the very, very high level, for most people, your day to day does not drastically change, right? I mean, there's bumps and bruises and things that kind of affect your environment around you, but you still show up for work, you still do your thing. Markets and stuff go up and down and make things maybe a little bit of struggle from a money standpoint or inflation standpoint. But
But think about
when
this
you
for a
focus
second, Travis.
locally,
Yeah, think about this for a second though, Travis. I want to add something on top of that because like a lot of those other things you do have to think of it that way. I do think there's an added stress with AI around the fear mongering that it will replace you. And I think at the individual level, we need to give that a little bit of its due and its moment because I don't know that any technology, and I'm wrong about that, I'm sure, because somebody's going to come up and tell me about, you know, something previously that had this effect, but that at such a grand scale, so many individuals are concerned about an AI replacing them
Yeah.
that it's created sort of a new, like a new spice. There's a new what's those hot pepper scales? The the oh man, I got to remember what they are. But like we've gone from habaneros to who knows what they are, and we're hitting this new pepper that's like, ooh, you can't put any of those. The Skokel level or something. I forget what it is.
Scobel, I think.
Yeah.
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 It's at like an all-time high because it hits you individually. And again, I think it's just that recipe to get people off kilter.
Yeah. Um, I agree, and I think that I'm glad you brought up the AI thing because it's something I've been thinking about. In I don't know, to toot our own horn at Smack. Now we've been doing a webinar series with Hugh Seaton, and Jeff. You and I might have talked about this too, and this might actually relate to the burnout tie-in as well. Is if you are in and again to the replacement, like if you are good at leveraging AI, right, and you're using AI properly for what it can, you're offloading some minutia to it, right? Some mental effort, but that ends up making you focus harder on more heavier, dense stuff. So if you're not in a like a daily routine or whatever, we all kind of have ebbs and flows of like mental effort, right? So if you're not doing the low level mental stuff, you're kind of not giving yourself a break in between during the day. If you started to offload some of those tasks to an AI, then you're on all the time. And I think that to try to relate this to your kind of fierce replacement and whatever is like the people that make it through this unscathed or even more powerful are kind of like they learn to leverage, right? They learn to leverage the tool for what it is, make yourself better without burning out. And I know that's probably a really delicate balance to strike, but it's out there. The opportunity is out there to kind of offload some of that. Whatever. Give me a daily summary of everything I need to do in my email. Give me, whatever you normally do. That's kind of a low level task that you could realistically give to an admin or an intern or something like that, without burning yourself out at the same time, because you will end up focusing on the hard stuff all the time because the AI is not going to do the hard stuff, right?
We talked about this in a previous episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll play devil's advocate a little bit with you, Travis, that I think one of the things that I've seen, and just to me personally, and this is kind of speaking to some of the things that we need to figure out with this new technology, is because I was the same way. Like my day was planned around the fact that in the morning I could probably dedicate about 2 hours of very sharp mental focus to some big problem solving effort. And then there was always stuff, after like that 2 hour period or whatever it might have been, you're pretty drained. So maybe now it's lunchtime. Maybe now it's time to go. Okay, I've got a stack of emails now after those 2 hours that I need to go address, and that's kind of mindless. And I'd go process my emails and send off correspondence, and then normally in the afternoon I'd be ready to put another hour or two of like deep mental focus into another hard to solve problem. I think what I've found is the AI has made the email processing and all those little things that I went to recharge has made them so fast that I don't get to recharge now.
Right.
And I'm going back to these, trying to put that sharp mental focus back into more complex tasks more often. And I think you feel that a little bit. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think understanding that it is changing the game a little bit. So if we titled the show Prep, I think, we've got to prep ourselves a little bit here and understand that the stuff that we maybe used to recharge and the low level things probably get done quicker now. So we've got to replan our days, maybe rethink the way we work a bit, because I have noticed that a little bit. So
Yeah, I mean, think about it. To your point, Travis, I've talked to Hugh and a few others about some of the realities of what you can automate, and one of the crazy ones is the ability to automate a lot of those things that just present the decisions to you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like to get to that decision tree to the point of making the decision. So you're making like 8 hard decisions in a row. You're not taking nearly as many breaths reading and getting you're intimate with the problem, but almost the reading gave you a break. And you're right, Trent, like what I don't think people understand is when you're doing those other tasks, you're actually unlocking in your brain chemistry a lot of the unconscious mind. And this is the key thing for leaders, is to understand like those high performers will burn out. They will keep making hard decisions. They won't stop, and you'll start promoting them more. Right. That's, I mean, not to call
holy
her
crap, this guy's
out,
getting way more done now. Yeah.
but Christina Henkai, when we had her on from SoBuilt and we talked about it, it was really that like we promote the highest performers to the point that we burn them out.
Right.
And you're right. We talked about this before.
We do that.
Yeah. And we talked about this before. The one cool place that we saw a reality of that came from Ryan Hogan. Ryan's like, I can optimize as much as I want, but this welder can only do so many welds in so much time. There is literally nothing more I can do. And if I do too much, they'll fall over. The welds will be compromised, and so will the human. So he had to ask himself and his organization, like, what else can I do? And that's what I want to see leadership and other people say, okay, wouldn't it be cool if we go all the way back to the beginning of this episode and we say, okay, you've automated those tasks, you've worked on difficult things. How about you spend some time having fun with this plan we have and shooting holes in it?
You can't say the fun word. That
Beat it up. Yes, you can. F-U-N. It's F-U-N. It can and will help you.
I think you said something pretty good there, and I think because we titled this prepper, and look, I'm winging it here. I'm going off script, so this is great. We'll
do we have a script really?
I think no, not really. But no. I think what you do is knowing that if a high performer can really let's say a true top level high performer, top 1% tile of can probably do what? Maybe 3 to 4 hours of deep mental processing a day, and then the rest is probably more I mean, I don't know. I could be off there. I'm sure someone like Andrew Huberman would probably give me a way more accurate figure, but there is a limit. Let's say like 4 hours of deep critical problem solving is probably a pretty high performing individual, if I had to guess. So I think what's going to happen is those recharge moments, those menial moments that maybe I had as let's say my role, I'm in charge of customer experience because that's what I do now. So, and with that, I had more, some correspondence responsibilities, some more administrative things that I maybe had to do to fill in those gaps. If the time it takes to get that done is now shrunk because of this new tool, I think what ends up happening, probably to me, if I had to prep for what that means in the workforce, would be we're probably going to extend the breadth of what these so rather than telling them that they're now going to do 6 hours of high performance problem solving efforts in their respective lane, I think maybe the lane just expands now, knowing that they can still only give 4 hours, but maybe now I do customer experience, but I'm also doing sales engineering, or I don't know. I think these leadership lanes maybe expand a little bit, because with that, I am going to have to grab more menial tasks to that lane that AI will do faster, but I'm still pulling in more. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of how we naturally combat the fact that the easy stuff is going to be done very quickly.
Well,
How do we, prep those individuals for that?
yeah, I can't, and I hate using this analogy over and over again, but I keep thinking about the ATM when the ATM was introduced. It was supposed to replace all bank tellers and everything like that. And what happened was banks had more branches, they had more people to to put on the high value tasks. I get what you're saying. Like these high performers, you don't want to burn them out with more stuff, but you give them higher value stuff to do. They find more important stuff to do.
I think I think that's what Trent you're saying is that lane gets wider, like it gets higher value, and I think that higher value actually too can be wired in systematically and from a process perspective to drive better business outcomes in the end. And I also think we have to kind of change the reward system, right? In again, we reward the high performers with more high performance. And I feel like you're right. And I'm going to challenge anybody listening, by the way. If you have the data or you disagree or agree and want to talk about it, this is an open format show. Reach out to any of us. Hit us on LinkedIn, hit us anywhere. We will bring you on to have that conversation, especially if you're going to bring data and argue with us. We love it because we want to be wrong. That's the cool part about this group. We want to learn because it's not that we're wrong. It's that everybody's got so much room to learn that I think there is.
Like when I said 4 hours, I meant like deep.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean deep, like 4 hours of
like
just
very stressful, like
say flow state. Like
yeah.
There is data around how long an individual can sustain flow state. Flow state is that moment.
I want to tie something together, and this is again completely off script.
We're already there.
We're already there.
I mean, we already
like.
Let's say what's not resilient is John's internet. We'll say that.
That's right.
Hey, Elon, fix that Starlink.
Can't put up another satellite, brother. But if we're kind of like going off base here, or going out to left field, like to your point, Jeff, about changing your like reward system, like what if I'm somewhat. I'm back and forth with the pullback from remote work. I want to preface that. Like there's some good with it, there's some bad with it. But what if we started to change the way we think about work? In that, to your point, Trent, like what if I spent 4 hours of that intense stuff, and that's what I need to do today? What if I went home then, right? Now there's a lot of work structures that would need to change. There's a lot of things, in our industry that would be like, okay, that's great for a PM, for a VDC person. That welder out on the 72nd floor is not like they're not quitting after 4 hours just because they had a hard mental day. So there's things to work out there, but I think there's opportunity in there to kind of think about work differently if we have these new tools that help us perform at a different level.
As long as we could, I think as long as we could show that there was an overall net positive in the equation, right? So, assuming at some point these AI tools are going to have more spend, I mean, as they grow and as the money goes into it, I can only imagine they're going to cost more money to leverage. So as long as you can spend money on that tool, and still get a net positive out of what your individuals are doing, so productivity wise, then right. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're spending money on the tool, but then everybody's output is still the same because they've just peeled back all the. I don't know if that equation. I
don't really think it does. And this is what I was trying to think about this for a second myself. And I want to go back to like the fundamentals of what our business is. It's a relationship business, but we are literally strapped to the point in almost every one of our projects where we don't have enough time as a team. And I mean that at our individual company level and then at the project level as well, to create relationships and and really like forge good team trust and that relationship portion. And I think if we use these tools to get some of that harder work, more mundane stuff done, but then give us that really hard decision making stuff that we need to do, and then said, okay, now open it up to the softer side of, so like you're right, Travis, the welder, they're never going to have that opportunity, right? They're going to keep welding. You're going to have jobs, and we don't want to create a gap between the quote unquote knowledge worker and the field worker, right? Because I think the field worker is a knowledge worker as well. I think that's a bad definition of my own stating
Yeah,
there.
probably not the best way to word it. Yeah.
Right, the office and the field, right? The digital and the field, whatever you want to call it. But there is an opportunity too that us in the office, if done correctly, can focus more on the relationship and finding the opportunities for efficiencies into the future as teams. Like, we just don't spend enough time. I know this watching. This is the coolest time, by the way, to watch certain people move around in the industry and find new homes and have new light bulbs going on. Those of you that have, followed us over the years, my career has taken me way outside of the trades into whole other areas.
Everywhere, man.
I'm in every and really opened my eyes. Like, I had so many aha moments, and I had so many wonderful teachers. Like, I'm gonna go back and Josh Bone was supposed to sit down with us tonight. Josh, we're still upset with you, but thanks to you, I got to meet a guy named Randy Paulson. And in the middle of a construction users roundtable Kurt event, Randy stood up, stopped me mid-sentence, and said, I hear you, but you don't understand us. And let me talk to you about that for a while. And he just taught me. And that time that I was allowed to learn that changed my perspective on the industry and the way I operate. And if we can focus people on getting the hard stuff done and having opportunities to have those cross-pollinations, to work with our teams, to check in with people, then we can do some big stuff, I think, right? Like, it's not about, I say this all the time, and I've said this since the beginning, like, I don't care if you do AI takeoff and AI estimating. You're not going to send the estimator home
right
at 20 hours because it's done. You're just going to do more bids. You're going to look for more areas. You're going to work them to 40 hours. But maybe we don't work them to 60 and 80. And maybe we work them to 20 to 30 a week of really intense stuff. And then we allow them to grow their skill sets and their relationships and grow for us, right? That's the other thing. We don't do any of this, enough of this in our industry. And I'll a little teaser, you got some stuff coming on the crew about this, but we don't train people in what they need to grow vertically. We do it vertically, but we don't do it horizontally. We don't tell someone who comes into the field and comes to us as a welder and a pipe fitter and say, like, hey, here's a path to be a project manager, a project executive, and eventually a COO. Well, what if we could offer that now?
Yeah.
Well, if you were at MEP, we did have a program about that. But
I totally stole it from there.
Okay.
Totally stole. That's by the way, biggest of all the things. I wanted my session to be the biggest one that I heard about. The one I hear from a multitude of people is that Maxim Consulting. It was supposed to be succession planning, I think.
Career path mapping is what.
Career path mapping, but it was all about, if you define it and then you can train on it, then they can grow. And I'm like, whoever invented that one, please, Mike, drop yourself. Love it.
Well, even like, look at a leader. I mean, when a leader gets strapped down, just look at some of the meetings and things that what are the first meetings to go? It's like it's probably the one-on-ones with their direct reports. It's probably it's all those things. So, being able to keep those things regular. All of the things that are seen as hopefully they're not seen as a non-value add, but they're probably seen as a
They are. They're seen as an
they're,
expense, Trent.
they're not
Right,
seen as a
right.
revenue producing function, right? So
They're non-revenue generating, so they're a nice to have, and we actually have
and
to
AI is
get
not
rid of
going to
that.
do a one-on-one because
No.
the
No.
point of the one-on-one is the empathetic approach of a leader.
Empathy. Yeah.
So there's a lot there. I think my whole thesis to it though is that AI's here. I just think we just got to have a plan. And I think we've just got to change the way we think about work and the way we think about
Yeah.
and it's not a replacement thing. We are going to have to evolve. There's no question. So
Use it as a
try to
tool.
find
Use
ways
it.
to use it properly and allow us to do the things that we're really good at, and maybe the things that we don't get to do. I mean, if you're a leader and you find yourself canceling one-on-ones with your subordinates all the time, stop that shit immediately, please.
Right, exactly.
Like
Well,
I said,
and I'll go to a Brene Brown there. Like there is a mathematical equation. I think that's what I'll call it. But like on the number of one-on-ones you can have, and it's really cool to watch Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, and Adam Grant sit down and talk about these things because a lot of their ideas line up. And I've watched this front and center. Those leaders at that center group, you have a maximum number of one-on-ones, and you should never be canceling those, Trent. You're right. You will try to grow beyond it, and you can't. What you need to do is surround yourselves by people who not only believe in the same vision and mission and values as you, but are willing to put their arm around your shoulder and carry the shared weight. Too many of us continue to push that weight up and it lands on one person's shoulders and they collapse, and we wonder why the hell they collapse. It's human nature. You can only carry so much. So if you can lock your arms with those people and share that, and then allow them to go out and trust that they share it out, and because they believe in the same mission, vision, values, accountability, right? We're not the same, but we're pulling in the same direction because we trust each other, because we have some core values in common. That, by the way, sounds like a perfect project group too, a project team as well. And so I think if we can use the AI to allow ourselves to get a lot of the stuff that prevents those things from happening and go. And the other thing, by the way, is that we don't ever leave ourselves enough time, and I'll use a Brene Brown here, to rumble. She calls it out. Their organization, and I would love to take her training at some point. I should have really taken the time over this last 18 months to take the training. Is, they say at a meeting, okay, we're going to rumble. And that's where you get down and dirty. And that's not meaning I attack the person. It means I attack the ideas. We really sit down and hash it out.
Well, some of that goes back to what John was saying with the pre-mortem, and I've thought about this a few times too. Like, wouldn't it be great if you had your best PM who was freed up from mundane PM tasks to maybe that PM's working 30 hours a week on your high level job, to start going, and again, I'll use another John word. What if that person went through all of your current estimates and found all the poison pills? Like, what value would that add to your future projects?
I mean, that's gold right there, man.
That would shrink your backlog. We don't want to do that.
Yes, you do. Shrink your backlog. But also, what if that senior project manager, foreman, instead of processing RFIs and PCOs and change orders that follow a very particular pattern that can be automated, and instead was working with and mentoring the other 20, less experienced PMs and foremen, and focusing on and actually using, listen, those RFIs and those PCOs and those change orders are not insignificant. They're indicators, but on their projects, they know what they're indicators of and they're trained on it. But what if they were allowed to see those things on the others and say, hey, I can step in here And the chat bot takes care of the RFIs and the change orders, and the human takes care of the really difficult relationship and organizational and sequential and scheduling and change that needs to happen that they've learned over the years that is ingrained in them for all of those other people that are less experienced. It's not 9 projects out of 10 that kill you. It's 1.
Right.
So
what if you can save that 1?
So if you're a construction leader out there, because let's try to wrap this whole.
Oh, you're wrapping it up.
Let's wrap this topic a little bit to a conclusion.
Let's wrap her up.
So if you're a construction leader, understanding what AI technology is bringing to the workforce, I guess the to-do here is to go to your organization and go to your people and find out what the high value add tasks are at each level in your organization, and find out where you tell these people to double down when they get time back from these tools, right? I mean, this is the study. I think you've got to figure it out and help them understand that they're now help them understand where you prefer their time being. As a leader, tell them like, hey, help them understand that when you do this, we win, right? So if we get you more time to do this, we'll win more.
Mm-hmm.
I would throw in there too, if you're a construction leader and you start to go down that process, it's perfectly acceptable for that person to tell you, or for you to tell that person, when you've got this done, take a hike, go for a walk for an hour, because if you don't, you are going to start to burn those people out.
Well, and how about this? Go walk the job
or something. Dude.
Go walk the job site. No, go walk the Trent. You know this. Go walk the job site with a clear mind.
Yeah,
a clear mind. You're going to see a bunch of things that you didn't know because you're not looking for them, right? You're going to see the unseen because of it. And I would double down on that. Understand that and take that time to realize what success looks like in each of your positions and what advancement looks like in your organization, and what are the skills you would love them to have that they learn the hard way now, that you now have the opportunity to give them training. And there's so much training in leadership and empathy, and also in the harder things, the technical side of things that are available that they can do at their own and on demand, and you can raise up your own workforce. So it's an awesome thing to do, and I think eventually it helps everybody. So
think about this for a minute too. This just came to me, but think of, as a trade contractor, put yourself in the shoes of a trade, and think about all the little things that a GC or CM makes you do that just really irks you, right? And you're just like, if we didn't have to do these things, we'd make so much more money. There'd be more time. We'd get more done, blah, blah, blah. Think of all those things. Now, imagine yourself as a trade contractor that is now leveraging these new tools to handle the bullshit, as you'll call it, that they make you do. Well, you're now kind of liking that bullshit, because if your competitors haven't figured out how to handle the bullshit, they're getting killed by it, and you're winning in it, right? So,
well, that's a series to be found there, Trent. Like that is the secret continual sauce. But to plug what we've been up to, I think that is right. The single innovation curve, Trent, is a real problem in our industry, and this is an opportunity for some of y'all to get ahead of that and like make a little extra cash along the way for processing a lot of things, doing a lot of things in the way the KPIs are right now. Eventually the world will catch up and figure out you've automated it. But for now, that's part and partial. But also I think here as Dorks, like, we're really interested in the high performers, in the growth. I think that session at SmackNA, not to kid about it, was really important, Travis. And it taught us a lot about what we can plan to do to the future. So I'm going to make this call for you, Trent, and I, because I've been clearly doing research on this for a while, and we wanted to find a way to talk about it a little bit more. If you're a CIO, a CTO, if you're an aspiring CIO or CTO, or you're on that path and want to know more about it, reach out to us, because we'd love to talk to you because I think there is a set of things we're not talking about that we'd like here at the Dorks to be a little bit more deliberate about. So it's an awesome time to do it. We ourselves have been risen through the ranks and into these strangely leadership positions.
Strangely.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do it easy. I mean, Trent, come on, and Travis, and I wish we had John here to say, like, there's a lot of hard knocks learning in this group. That's why this group was invented in some respects. Like, misery loves company and bourbon. So come join us on the journey. It's really important to us. And I know Jonathan left. He did want us to talk about prepping your data for AI, but I want to leave that to him in a future episode.
I think we.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a whole episode around
If
prepping
anyone
your
knows
data.
anything about that, it's John right now.
It's John. So I just didn't want him to think we left him out. But Elon fixed Starlink so Jonathan can join us as a dork. This is really offensive to me that he can't be here. Don't come after me. Just kidding. But no, to you guys, Travis, thanks for taking time while you're on the road and doing everything you're doing to join us.
Man, safe
Trent,
travel,
you too, man.
Yeah.
This is the highlight of most of my weeks. And so thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And to everybody listening, we appreciate you. Raise that glass and salute, even if it's a San Pellegrino, because listen,
now.
we're equal. Oh, well, go get you.
Trent's got to go pee.
Trent's got to pee. He's got to get out of here. And with that, episode 94, prepping for 2025 and beyond.